What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming to you with another episode of the Affiliate Marketing Show. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest affiliate marketing news, tips, and trends. Josh, myself from OfferVault.com, the industry's largest aggregator of all things affiliate marketing. If you're trying to crush it in this industry, you need to be hip to OfferVault.com. We got you covered on networks, offers, affiliate programs, direct advertisers, traffic sources, blah, blah, blah. Anything you can think of, you name it, we got it on OfferVault.com. This episode, again, is brought to you by our amazing partners at Pinup Partners, celebrating 8 amazing years in the iGaming industry. To mark the occasion, as you know, if you're a regular viewer, they're kicking off one of the most epic promotions ever, and trust me, you don't want to miss this. For anyone who's not familiar with the contest, listen closely. What's on the line, you ask? Over 500 prizes, hundreds of challenges, and a prize pool worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Plus the grand prize, a luxury car and an exclusive party in the Alps, which you can hit up our co-host Harrison to get your jet and your flight out there. Sounds unreal, right? I know it does, but guess what? It is unreal. The whole competition is not true. Just kidding. That was unreal. The competition is real. You need to get in on the action, all right? There's a ton of stages. It's going on now through December, and affiliates and partners have plenty of time to participate in the daily challenges and score instant rewards. Each stage opens up new chances to enter the prize drawing, so you've got to stay on top of the action. It's easy, all right? Check this out. All you got to do is sign up with their bot through the link in the description and follow the guidelines to get started. This is your chance to take part in something epic with Pinup Partners. Thanks again to Pinup Partners for your sponsorship and your trust in the Affiliate Marketing Show. We also have Daddy Callbucks, Adam Young, as well as the industry legend Harrison Gevirtz, and our special guest today, Cari Hartman, VP of Business Development at Policy Jar, a company focused on scaling your business by delivering the most relevant and conversion-ready leads directly to you. Get leads today by visiting policyjar.com. What's up, Cari? How we doing?
Doing great. Happy to be down in South Florida for the week.
All right, what,
Josh,
Adam?
you forgot to introduce Peanut.
Oh, we
no.
also have our special little friend, our furball Peanut. Our little snowflake. Cari, you've been quite the jet setter yourself, speaking about private jets and traveling. I know you were just at Affiliate World in Budapest. I believe you were one of the featured speakers there. I know you were also at Ibiza. I don't know if you want to touch on that as well, but let's definitely talk about Affiliate World. I usually go to the Affiliate Worlds. I have 2 little kids now, so I'm kind of riding that excuse to stay home and work less, but don't tell my bosses. And I want to know, how was the show? How did your speech go? And I'm assuming a lot of what we'll cover today on the podcast is kind of tied into what you talked about there.
Oh yeah, it went really well. What I felt like was pretty basic information about biz dev ended up resonating and just being sort of common sense ideas for biz dev that people don't always think of immediately. So it was good. It was like more of an international audience, so it was nice to focus on the US market and talk about lead gen there.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people in our industry, they get so dialed into like certain lanes or channels for how they meet people and how they find people in biz dev that they forget the basics. And the basics have always been the most powerful for me. I'm curious, like, what do you think some of the like most powerful yet simple methods for biz dev that you talked about were that like really resonated with the affiliate crowd?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not really a secret, but for finding buyers, I feel like buyers are on LinkedIn. That's my most powerful tool. I've been using it for 15 years. But basically, like, there are Chrome extensions where you can add that onto LinkedIn and it becomes a super powerful tool. So you can like basically get email addresses and phone numbers for different contacts. And then you're reaching out to them via phone or email versus LinkedIn messages, which they get hit up like 500 times on LinkedIn by all various people pitching them. So it's much more effective if you can email them directly. And then the other thing is just getting introductions from people who are already doing it. And also befriending call tracking platforms and tracking platforms and
like that.
Compliance tools. Like I started in compliance, and that was one of our biggest, selling points was we would help our clients succeed by making introductions to buyers. So, I mean, that's basically like a win-win. So
when you reach out cold to somebody, I'm curious what your process is. And so, I mean, I literally got a LinkedIn message this morning from someone who wants to meet me at InsurTech Connect, which is coming up here pretty soon. And I laugh because right now it's like VC hunting season for InsurTech Connect for technology companies, right? And so I get like 10 cold calls a day. I got a phone call right when you walked in. I got a LinkedIn message this morning. The LinkedIn message this morning said, "Hi, Adam. I'm really interested in hearing about Pantheon's story or some company I've never heard of. Can we meet at InsurTech Connect?" And he's like, my VCs told me that you're great and whatever. And I was like, wow, okay, man. Like, I don't know what this company is. And I think I get so many of these. They're all generic. They all sound exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have incorrect information in it. And a lot of them lie to me. Actually, they'll be like, "Hey, Ringba is amazing. Yeah, I love your story, blah, blah, blah." And they don't know our story.
Yeah, my approach is very direct. You have to keep it short. You have to keep it very specific, and I don't reach out to people like blanket. I don't do that. I very precisely try to pick the right person within the organization, which can be challenging to find that, if you're talking about like a healthcare carrier that has 400,000 employees, it's like the size of a small country. You're like, where do I even start? So basically, I mean, one of the best ways to do it is just to see who you have in common and go, okay, well, this person's connected to 100 affiliates. It's probably the right person, or at least they know who the right person is. And then you basically just want to state who you are, what you're doing, what traffic you're running, maybe the volume that you run, just so they take you seriously if you're running a lot of volume. And then very quickly, like, make it about them. Ask, say, what are your goals? Like, what are your targets for this right now? Are you testing? Do you have budgets to test? Like, very simple, very easy, and just genuine, and not like, it's one of those things where it's helpful to have a VA like do the initial research and build the list for you. But then when you actually reach out, it should be you like doing it.
Yeah. And
One other piece of information I would suggest giving people, I think people, they keep it really close to the belt. They're not comfortable with saying who they work with now. But being transparent about who you're working with goes a long way. In this industry where nobody ever brokers anything ever, people would be surprised. And sometimes you might actually be working with said advertiser or network, whatever it may be, indirectly. And at first they're going to like swallow and, they're going to like gulp and be like, oh, again. But then they might realize that you're like an incredible quality source for them, and that there's potential to get more volume from you because you're going to make more money, get paid more or something. So, not being so scared to be open about who or what you're doing, I think goes a long way just in general. Like, transparency is when, how Adam and I got ahead of the game when we were, marketers ourselves.
I think what's interesting about what you said is you were like, and then I quickly changed this to it's about them. And I know when you're reaching out to them, like, you genuinely want to know what's important to them, because that's how you build a real relationship.
Yep.
And I think when it comes to affiliates, and I've made this mistake myself, or just cold calls in general, it's always about what I wanted. And that never worked. And most of the cold calls I get today, this is when I was younger, much younger, most of the cold calls I get today are only about what that person wants. or use my software and I'll deliver something, but it's very rarely something we actually need, which is really surprising to me that people don't take the time to do it, because if you send a few really good cold calls and put the time in, you can generate a real relationship. But if you send 1,000 nonsense ones with the wrong company names in or whatever, you're not going to get a response, especially to high level
your
people.
time and their time and everybody's time. I think the more research you put in before you ever reach out is the best way to go about it. And I mean, obviously you can direct a VA to do most of that research for you, but then at the end of the day, you want to sift through it yourself and actually do the outreach, I think, and that's the best way.
Cari, how much of an emphasis do you put on revenue and profit when it comes to, defining your success as the VP of business development? Because I feel like a lot of people kind of associate those two hand in hand. Do you kind of let that determine how well you're developing the business per se, or can you do a lot of development without even considering the money aspect of it?
It depends on the vertical and how long the vertical takes to onboard. I feel like there's always stuff that you can onboard quickly to generate immediate revenue. Whereas if you have a long-term, game plan for something like Medicare, it takes much longer to onboard those buyers, to get your ads approved. It's one of those things that you can't expect an immediate return, but while you're working on that, while you're waiting for carriers to opt into your ads, you can be working on final expense or debt or whatever other vertical that you're succeeding in or trying to scale. And I think another point I want to make is people always say, oh, you can test with an ad network and then you want to go direct. You don't always immediately want to go direct. And I kind of look at it as a stacking game. So it's always beneficial to test with a network. I would agree with that. And their whole expertise and the whole reason you're working with them is because they manage the buyer relationship. But obviously, if you're succeeding with someone, with some offer, you want it direct because, you get that additional margin. But at the same time, it sometimes pays to stack the offer from multiple sources. That way, you're, spreading it out basically.
And Cari's talking about calls specifically here.
Yeah, calls. Yeah, because calls are so immediate versus leads, that you always should have a backup basically. Otherwise, you're DOA.
Do you feel like people burn bridges when they go from a network to direct? Will that piss off a network, or are they this is the name of the game?
That's how it works. But like I said, you can still send traffic to the network while you're sending direct, and they don't need to know about it, and it's fine.
Well, and the reality is that the buyers aren't going to give you all the cap.
No, it's true. That's the strategy, is to just get as much cap from diversified sources as possible.
And I ran into this many years ago on a campaign where I had a large allocation of direct cap. The payment terms were bad. It was net 30 or net 45. And it was a lot of money for me to float. And I was running traffic through a bunch of networks as well. And this wasn't calls. This was a lead gen campaign.
Yeah, it applies to
great offer. I know what it was.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And so I went and talked to the guy running the campaign at the buyer of the leads. And I said, listen, all the traffic you're getting from these 6 networks or whatever, it's all me. Can we just work direct? I would much rather work direct with you, take feedback from you. And he said to me, nah, that's not possible. And we need diversity across our portfolio. So we are only willing to allocate a certain amount to each individual partner. And so even when I disclosed to them that this was my traffic, they didn't believe it. And I still ran it through all those networks.
Yeah, sometimes it really doesn't matter. It's just, you should be agnostic to it, and rather than, being anti, the network, I'm just going to go around them. It's the wrong way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, and they'll do accelerated payment terms most of the time.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, what affiliates or publishers don't consider is payment risk when working with direct buyers. We all know what happened with Health IQ earlier. And that was a really big mess. Ringba customers, I believe, still to this date, are holding the bag on 8 figures in value. And that if they would have run some of that volume through a network, the network would have had to absorb some of those losses and likely would have had accelerated payment terms. And not to say that we want to see networks lose money or anyone lose money, but the reality of this type of business is that diversity across your accounts receivable risk is just as important to your business as the buyer's diversification across partners. So if one goes down or has an issue or something, their entire day or week isn't ruined. And so there's something to be said for working with all different types of partners and being good about your allocations. I don't think this is something that people necessarily think about either. They're just like, I need to run as much volume as possible.
Yeah.
But Harrison knows this intimately about different types of payment risk. And I'm very grateful for the lessons Harrison learned about this that I got to watch. Because
I was like Chernobyl of the network world. So I like to come up with, throw me the Hiroshima, whatever, throw me the natural disaster. I did it. And, I think something that I've had to explain to affiliates and, let's just say media buyers that are starting out, they're like, I'm working with XYZ network and they're paying me, this price, whatever. They're paying me $40 a call. And I talked to the guy at the trade show. I talked to the advertiser directly. Dude, I'm going to get $52 a call. I have cash flow. I can do this. I have enough money. I can run, half my volume over here. It's great. And the simplest way that I can explain the business model of a network outside of like doing the biz dev and finding the offers and getting them multiple debt advertisers or whatever the vertical it is they are assuming the risk. You are a bank when you're an affiliate network. So if you're a media buyer today and you want to scale your business up becoming the bank, all power to you. But keep in mind, think about, what they call the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis. There is a risk to running a bank. So like, if you're, that guy had 20% margins, that's great. But that means that if he loses $1 million, he needs to do 5 million in revenue to make that million back. If he's working with if you're working with someone for a few months and you do some, let's say you do 2 million in revenue and you make $400,000, you got your 20, or let's say $500,000 in margin, you made, 25% margins, great. But then you take $1 million hit on month 3, you're down 500. And so, what's the cost of capital to you? Think about it that way and think about it. Can you handle that? Because like I've been around, I've been not paid more times than I can count on my hand. I'm sure you've experienced that more times than you can count, Cari. Adam has seen it. I mean, it happens. And so that's, people, there's pros and cons to working direct. There's pros and cons to working with a network. There's a happy medium. And, do you want to be the bank? Cool. Go be the bank. Do you not want to be the bank and be protected? Do you want that FDIC coverage? Work with a network. Simple.
Adam, you mentioned the importance of like diversity on both sides of this industry. I know there's a lot of different, and this is going to you, Cari. I know there's a lot of different buyers out there and ways of, finding buyers when it comes to US lead gen, which I know Policy Jar and you spend a lot of time focusing on and are kind of experts in. What are your thoughts on the best way to find those buyers when it comes to US lead gen?
Well, like I said, LinkedIn is great. But beyond that, like I just look at it vertical by vertical. One of the things that I said at Affiliate World was, and one of my slides was basically Google it. Like if you're international, obviously use a proxy, but Google, attorneys near me or accident attorneys near me. The ones that come up first are the ones, buying. They're the ones that are bidding and they have budgets and they have money to spend. Or like, there's other verticals too, like that you could just look and basically find the top 4 advertisers in any vertical just by Googling it and seeing who's spending money. Another thing that you can do that's easy is if you get served an ad and you want to you see that ad running, you're like, oh, I'm interested in running that vertical. There's an add-on called like link redirect trace.
Mhm.
You can basically just have that as a browser extension, like look at all the redirects and see who's running it, which networks are brokering it to whom. And then if you actually go a step farther and track those domains and keep track of which domains, you can see basically what's running, and what other people are succeeding with.
Josh, Harrison and I used to keep lists of tracking domains so that we understood what tracking domains belong to what networks, and we
Dude, I would
used
see. I would just
exactly
click
this
on an
thing.
ad and be like, "Ah, they're running on Propeller ads, okay, or whatever
Yep.
network." Oh, that's Zero Park.
Yeah,
Cool.
I got a new laptop and I like forgot that I didn't have that installed, and I was so mad because I'm like, oh no, I can't see. I'm just
Yeah.
used to just clicking over to the link redirect trace and figuring out who's running.
And it's
But
funny that you say this because, like, when Harrison and I used to do biz dev, it was this exact same mindset that you're talking about. And I think it boils down to what you're saying is like you're willing to do the work to figure out who the people are and to find the opportunities. And the more work that you have to do that, the better, actually, because
yeah,
that means that most people will not put in the work or be able to find the people to work with. And Harrison was incredible at this, and he found us a lot of advertisers to work with that no one had any idea how to contact because he would just dig and dig and dig and
Mhm.
dig and dig and dig.
Sometimes it's tough to find,
It's not as easy as it used to be. Like domain tools used to be such a tool. Now it's
Yeah.
like not
Yeah.
great. They ruined Whois. I used to like. I'll share some shit because it's not even that useful anymore. I used to like dig through privacy policies, find a business address, search the
Oh, I
business
still do
address,
that.
find a fulfillment warehouse for a Nutra advertiser, find a LinkedIn to a company name that's not anything to do with the LLC on the privacy policy. You dig it up
Yeah.
like that. You LinkedIn stuff. I mean, back in the day, people wanted affiliates. They put an affiliates link on the footer of their webpage.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, no one does that, which sucks.
When I was at a network, we used to make the buyers remove that if we
Huh.
were going to run it because we knew that our publishers would just
Go
go down
direct.
go and sign up. We're like, we're not just building you a sign up link, for all of our affiliates.
I would use like Inspector or whatever and like find the URL, the redirect URLs, use that, check on domain tools, then search. Sometimes people would have it on the same like IP range as their like their network or their like corporate site. Find it. Like there were so
still do
many
that.
good ways.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder now.
Sometimes.
I mean, that's one of the cool things, with calls. You can kind of figure out who you're calling.
Yeah, the partner page, but if you look at those partner pages, I mean that's a whole project in and of itself because there's just like thousands of companies listed on those and you're like, okay, like this is a list here that I have to dig through. But
Cari, you
gonna be
mentioned
interesting.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say you mentioned the sponsored ads on like Google and stuff. Me as like a user, I've kind of found like those turn me like away. I don't know. I usually find myself scrolling past those because I don't trust them because I know they were paid for. Do you kind of feel the same way, or do you think I'm kind of in the minority,
I
or maybe I'm
would,
just
yeah, so like I always have to remind myself that I'm not the end user.
right?
Like not the typical user, like none of us are. They're still very effective, especially on mobile. But I spent 7 years doing Google Search Arbitrage, so like running Google AFD feeds, and that's how I got so like niche with every vertical because I've tested literally thousands of keywords.
So
Like,
let's hit on that real quick because I know that's something we wanted to talk about today in terms of search arbitrage in general. What are some of like the do's and don'ts, excuse me, when it comes to working in that space that you would kind of give people advice that are working in that as well?
well, it's been a couple years since I've done it, and I know it changes rapidly. There's recently Google announced an update actually while I was in Budapest, and I was sitting with one of my friends who does search arb still heavily, and she's like, "Well, they ruined it. Like they basically made it so that advertisers are auto opted out of the AFD feed.
Yeah.
So that's going to cause RPCs to drop significantly." And have pretty bad impacts on anyone that's running search arb. But I mean, I'm sure it's always changing. Like when I was doing it, I built a whole third-party email network all off of Search Arb, all email traffic, and then Google decided to make it really difficult to have any sort of email.
Yep.
So we had to pivot to like native and social overnight, and that was, I mean, that now they allow email again, but it took years to flip back to that. So
Yeah, the search feeds have always been a problem. Harrison and I got train wrecked by search feed rule changes. We used to do app installs, and we had our search feeds in them, and they changed the rules for that. And then we also, like you, had some email technology many years ago, and they changed the rules related to that. And so we ended up going to a Yahoo feed, and then Yahoo changed the rules.
Yep. We did
After
the same.
that,
We did the same thing. Was this about 2017?
earlier.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
Earlier.
it sounds
Maybe
like
it was. Maybe
it sounds like
2017.
what you say all the time about this industry is you got to be ready to adapt all the time.
Yeah. Well, another thing we did as a result of the feed RPCs going down was we went and looked for aggregators in auto insurance and different verticals that we knew did well with feeds. So we're like, okay, well, what's the next step here? Let's find the biggest buyers nationally and just work with them instead, and that's what we did. So like back then, I mean, obviously Assurance is no more, but they were a big auto insurance buyer and life insurance, and they ended up buying our traffic. So it was
outside of like the rule changes related to email that you briefly talked about. How has it kind of changed since 2008? Because I know, like you said, you were doing it and have been doing it for a while. But more importantly, like, where do you see it headed moving forward?
So with email, it's changed a ton. The biggest change since the early days is the fact that people now rely upon ESPs versus like getting giant IP blocks to mail. And really, I think, most ESPs only want first party mail. So it's just become about building your own O&O with an opt-in and getting the opt-in yourself, collecting the data, and then that's your list. And then you're able to send like branded newsletters. So I think it's really evolved into a branded newsletter type of model.
Do you think that's good or bad?
It's probably good, but
Good for consumers.
Yeah, for consumers,
It's like a mix of content in those. I remember a few years ago, Adam, we talked to some guys that did this, and I'm now currently subscribed to like 8 like political newsletters on both sides, and they're like, it's like a newsletter, and they essentially syndicate content. So it's like you click on an article, and it's like an article that links to a CBS article or Fox News or ABC or CNN, and then it'll be like, check out this colon cleanse that really helps someone in the news links. And, I talked to some people, and, they said they get really high CPCs, and they get, they might get a bit less of a conversion rate, but the open rates make up for any differential, like, because people open this stuff. Like, one of them was like, it was like some conservative newsletter, like something Patriots or something. And I remember clicking on it, and it's like, I asked the guy, I'm like, do people like convert on these like weird offers with the video flows? And we have a good friend that we hung out with in Thailand many years ago, whose entire business, we literally sat in a hotel suite and watched like ClickBank art video things, and his entire business is email. And I think that's kind of become the way of, email. I don't think there's just like email drops with a Nutrisystem creative anymore.
Well, there are, but it's like very specific emailing operations that are in Morocco and India. And if you're not them, you can't really get away with it at scale. I mean, they're like spoofing Amazon web server to get delivery.
Eesh.
So, and they inbox my Gmail, and I'm just like, wow, they're still doing this.
That's impressive.
So that's happening. But meanwhile, like everybody else is moving to
those ESPs are constantly making updates to their like policies
daily,
all the time. Like I just had to jump through some hoops to meet their thing. Now in the end, I think it, helps the open rate long term, but it's not fun when you're doing it in real time.
We deal with the same thing on transactional email for notifications at Ringba. Like these are emails that you've seen them. They're like, hey, this
Yeah.
happened. You can't reply to it. It's not an advertisement. It's not anything. It's just like, hey, this happened. Like a receipt email almost. And we still have to deal with compliance and deliverability related to that. And Amazon, I think we work with Amazon on that, and they monitor deliverability and email validity very closely, and we have to pay attention to it. And so email definitely has gotten a lot more restrictive. But Harrison, to your point, like which one's better? A lot of these emails that are branded with multi-dimensional content in it have sold and actually accrue enterprise value, whereas some emailer from 2006 doing high volume email delivery, deployment, yeah, high volume email deployment. Excuse me. Yes, they have no enterprise value in their business. Like no one's going to buy that business, but the ones that are doing the newsletters are selling for surprising amounts of money. So I think that goes to show the power of a brand. And when you can actually engage a consumer with information they want, you're more likely to win. So it's like harder to do at the beginning, but long term, it becomes like a really valuable consumer base that you can sell. So I'm very pro the branded emails. I think that type of model is really great. And a lot of marketers don't like change. So the marketers hate a lot of the email rules or any changes in rules in general. But I
Those
think
changes in rules stem from Google and Yahoo, right?
I just pulled up on my screen here my
Pretty
spam
much.
folder, and I will say that, and I've never been a huge mailer. Back in the day, I had some advertisers that had payment issues, and they gave me partial data, and I put it on a rev share with like Blue Sky, which doesn't even exist anymore.
Blue Sky.
If you're an OG, you've heard of Blue Sky.
The OG private jet people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
no, it's okay. I know them too.
And like I will say, email's a hard game. I will just read some of the brands that hit my spam folder today. I got 1-800-Flowers in here.
Classic.
I got a school, like some education thing. I got a weed dispensary in here. I got multiple like hotels that are emailing me. I mean, this is like that's hard because those are name brands. So if 1-800-Flowers is struggling to get into Gmail, I mean that's a
Well, who's
Well, I mean,
regulating?
Harrison, I just pulled up mine, and I've got in my junk folder, my spam folder, and Google Apps. It's Traffic and Conversion Summit,
Oh,
Digital Summit, Hyatt House in Chicago, the
Native Urban.
Setai Miami Beach, which we've literally actually stayed at.
Yeah,
like,
dude, a Michelin sushi spot hit my.
sounds like hotels are struggling, or it could just be your inboxes with the hotels and the spam. I don't know.
So who's above Google and Yahoo? Like, is anyone policing them, or can they just say these are the rules?
One point or something I want to touch on is there's like several attorneys that they use the California laws around mailing to. Yeah, I recently got caught up in some of that.
I was an expert witness in one against Dan Balsam.
Oh, very nice. Yes, we all love Dan. Dan hates spam.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically what they're going after a lot, like currently right now, is mailers who have privately registered domains. That's a no-no, and they basically can charge $700 per email message
Wow.
for that. So it's a headache. I recommend, not mailing from any privately registered domains.
That's
sure.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harrison, I'm still scrolling through my junk folder. I'm
Yeah,
fascinated.
you're in a trance right now, dude.
My inbox and my junk folder for my personal Gmail are very similar. Like I can't even tell the difference, honestly.
Yeah, it's wild.
But
I mean, some of these brands.
Nordstrom's, Poshmark,
so just
Macy's.
Pro tip: if you combine that, if you look at that on your browser with link redirect trace, you can see who's mailing it and which network they're running through.
Yeah.
And it's especially valuable if you're actually signed up on that network, because then you can see their base redirect domain and figure out who's who.
Cari, taking a little bit of a left turn here, something we talk about on the show, not all the time, but once in a while, is how to qualify good leads. I know you mentioned earlier insurance is something you've spent a lot of time with. So specifically with insurance, how do you qualify good leads in that vertical? What's your process and some tips that you've learned over the years you might be able to give to our audience?
I mean, usually it comes down to, well, insurance companies they'll look, or insurance buyers will look at the traffic source as a whole overall. So like right now, for whatever reason, like Google is providing the best quality, I would say, over social. That could be due to elections, due to the costs of run, the algorithm updates that they do. That's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is targeting. So basically you're looking at age, income, whether or not they're a homeowner. Those are the main things. I mean, you're kind of looking at a prime audience versus a subprime audience, and you can break down what types of offers they qualify for based on that, as well as age. So
of the insurance, sub verticals, if you want to call them that, between like life, health, and auto, what do you feel like is the hottest or the best for an affiliate looking to get more involved in that side of the industry to jump into?
I think it depends. I wouldn't suggest jumping into health insurance.
Yeah, you should totally email me right
Just-
before open enrollment and ask for intros.
Jump in with, it's really quick, it just takes a couple of weeks and you're just scaling like crazy.
Adam has all the cap you need.
I would suggest, honestly, probably to start, I would do, if you can get auto, budget auto. But from the buyers I've talked to recently, they're pretty like inundated with social traffic at this moment and like not loving the quality. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of comes down to, can you get test budget from a network, I would say, and just see if it sticks.
Well, also for auto, Harrison and I crushed it using this practice. If you have a direct buyer, a buyer that's communicating with you,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, hey, we're inundated with social traffic. And you're like, listen, I have YouTube traffic. It's really, really high quality.
It's literally what I just said to a buyer like 2 days ago.
Can I send you 100 calls for free?
Oh, I didn't say that.
Yeah. Like,
to be clear,
if I were competing with you, I would simply be like, listen, my calls are amazing. They're from YouTube. They're high quality auto. I'll send you 100 of them for free if you tell me what your conversion rate is and if it meets your CPA requirements. And by the way, what are the CPA requirements? Oh, they're $115 or whatever, right?
Yeah, I always ask for CPA.
Yeah.
And then is that kind of like giving them a taste of the candy, basically?
Yeah. Well, look, if I know my quality is excellent, the best way that I can compete with everybody else is on quality.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it to them for free, whether they ask for it or not, if they're willing to give me the data. And once they assess those calls, even if they won't work with me right away, if someone makes a mistake and their quality is not what it needs to be, they already know what my quality is, and I'm going to be their first phone call. Mm-hmm. That is, if I have good quality, right? Like, if my quality is not good, I'm not going to run this game. Like, it's not going to work. And so you kind of have to understand what your back-end conversion rate is likely to be before you do something like that. And then you can always validate the back-end conversion rate as well once you've sent them the calls. And what's interesting about this, Josh, is I had someone at contact.io come up to me who read my book, Paper Call Revolution, on Amazon, or, go to papercallrevolution.com. We'll send you one for free.
I found your book in Ibiza.
Yeah.
It was just laying there. I don't know how it got there. It was just like laying there on a beach chair by itself.
Amazing. You should have sent me a photo of that. Like,
I think I did take a photo and then I never got around to sending it.
Well, send me the photo.
I will.
But my point is, Josh, he read the book and he was like, I thought your advice was so simple and so silly when I read it. Like, why would someone do that? And also, this is obvious. But he said, you know what? I called a business who is a regional chain, and I offered them free calls, and they said, yeah, like you don't have a place to send customers, we'll take them. And then they went through the results of those calls, and the business was pretty excited about him, and now he has a business. And I thought that was such a simple way to entice someone to give you a try. And I think he might have sent him 25 or 50 free calls, not meaningful amount of money, but not cheap either. And like now he has a business. And so I always think that giving is a really long-term play. And, whenever even Ringba has to deal with something, we do our best to work with customers and we think about them for the long term. And I think the long-term mindset is how you really win in the calls business, because most of the buyers are really big companies. They're not going anywhere, like health insurance or any type of insurance isn't going anywhere. It's regulated. And so you want to be thinking about, like, how do I do business with this company 5 years from now, and start behaving that way? And it might take a little while, but you'll get in, and then you can preserve your relationship with them.
So we're recording this, we can call it middle of September. By the time this comes out and you're watching it right now, it's now the end of September. Welcome to the end of September. You mentioned open enrollment. So hypothetically speaking, we're about a month away from that starting. What should people, I think I already know your answer, but we'll see. What should people be doing right now to prepare themselves for that open enrollment season that's coming up? Obviously not newbies, because, it's a little late in the game, but people that are, very experienced with this. What's, like, around this time of year, the most important things to be focusing on to make sure you're ready for that upcoming open enrollment?
Yeah. So for health insurance open enrollment, I mean, it's all about, well, for Medicare, it's all about having your ads approved, having carrier opt-ins. So if you're experienced and in the game, and right now or at the end of September, you should be getting all of your ads approved by different aggregators who may have submitted on your behalf, and getting caps and being ready to launch basically on October 15th.
And if you're new to Medicare, you should email Harrison and ask him to intros to buyers.
He needed to pay it forward, yeah.
Adam,
No,
I thought your
think
answer, Adam, was going to be like, you're way too late in the game. Don't even waste your time.
That was the answer.
Yeah. You're too late.
I almost said this, and I was like, I don't want to sound like too much of a dick, but my comment was going to be, and I'm apologizing, this is what hey, I want to get in for open enrollment, I want to run traffic. I'd be like, hey, you should probably explore other verticals.
All right,
like,
so flip side.
You should start planning for the 2020
following year.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Literally,
when's the right time?
Takes.
It takes a year. You got to start a year in advance.
Yes.
Yeah. So
or two.
The right time to really start talking to people who are going to buy your calls for next year's open enrollment is like end of January. Once they're coming back from vacation and they're sort of dealing with growing their business forward, that's really the right time. You could reach out to them now, but
why do you need 10 or 11 months? Can you break that down? Because
Okay.
I'm not very familiar with what goes into that 10-month lead up.
You have the initial call. You get about 5 or 6 different pieces of homework to do. Onboarding paperwork, contracts. Contracting. That's the beginning of the process. Filling out all the due diligence paperwork that they need, submitting a blood sample. And no, you don't actually have to do that yet. No, and then it comes down to you're sort of in a holding pattern for a while you wait to see what plans and what the carriers need and what they're going to accept in terms of ad angles for the following year. And then you create all of your marketing materials, communications materials, which are designated separately by CMS. And then you submit those to your buyers. And whether or not they submit them on your behalf to HPMS is another question. So they may have a process where they're submitting to 8 different insurance carriers on your behalf. So you're waiting for approvals from all of them, as well as government approval to run the ads. So that process takes a very long time.
So everybody, you just got a blueprint from Cari Hartman on how to get involved in open enrollment. Has it always been like that, by the way? Or did it?
No.
So you used to be able to jump in much sooner to the start of it?
Yeah, the SMID process, that started 2 years ago? Yeah.
And I get this every year before open enrollment, and that is people reaching out about like, hey, I need Medicare buyers. Hey, I need this type of thing. And my response at this point is more like Harrison's, where I'm just like, yeah, like if you don't know that this isn't going to work for you right now and that I'm not going to be able to do anything, then you really have no understanding of how the Medicare game works. And so you shouldn't be trying to participate.
No, you should
in
just run final expense.
Yeah. Or auto or something else.
Something else. You should run Nutra.
Yeah, exactly. Like Medicare is a complicated business, and carriers, like, it doesn't matter who the referral comes from. Like if I personally refer someone to a carrier 2 weeks before,
They don't
open
skip
enrollment,
legal.
yeah, they're not skipping legal. They're gonna be like, Adam, you're crazy. Like, what? Why would you even do this? Which is why I don't. And I think before, like, people follow the trends and they see all this big money in Medicare and they see all this big money in different verticals, and then they just immediately are like, all right, I'm jumping into this, but they don't really do the research and understand what they need to do to participate in that vertical. I do think that Medicare is one of the largest opportunities out there, and it will continue to be, but it's a very hard opportunity to get started in. Once you get started in it, then you have a moat and your business is kind of protected because of what Cari just outlined here, is how much work it actually takes to do. And it requires paperwork, thoughtfulness, negotiation. And even if you get a Medicare direct buyer and they send you an IO or a contract, you still should have a lawyer review it, even if that's going to take time. Like, you can't skip these steps in the process. And so if you're going to do Medicare, it really needs to be a long-term, thoughtful business process. And 10 months in advance is where it starts, Josh, or even sooner. Like if I'm like, I want to get into Medicare, I'm not going to be able to do that until next year, open enrollment. I'm going to reach out to people and say, hey, I know you're super busy. I know the answer is no right now. I'm not even going to ask you to do business this open enrollment, but I would love to work with you in the future, maybe in a year or two, and I recognize I'm going to have to earn your trust. And then I'm going to ask a few questions. I'm like Cari would do. She'd say, like, I'm currently doing this. I'm currently doing that. If you're not running Medicare, you could say, I'm super successful in auto. I run this many insurance calls, and we have a great team, and we, here's how we run our business, and build that relationship knowing that you're not going to be able to work with them for months. And the reason you need to do that is because everyone is going to be pounding these people, hoping to work with them. And if you don't differentiate yourself by being thoughtful and thorough, they already know you're not going to be able to deal with all the compliance requirements and follow the rules. And so you're just going to get eliminated immediately.
I'm assuming it's a huge opportunity and payoff, right? Because for that amount of work, it better be, right? Okay.
Well, it's a free government, funded product. So yes, like it's something that you don't have to sell the consumer on something that costs money. Whereas most verticals, the consumer is actually having to purchase something. So you have to do the work on the other side. And that's why it's so heavily regulated as well.
Cari,
anytime you're dealing with seniors or a subprime audience, it's going to be more heavily regulated.
I only got one more question for you before we let you get out of here. I don't know about the other guys, but you talked about biz dev a lot at the beginning of the episode, mentioned LinkedIn as well as some other things. This is a super loaded question, but outside of those angles, you kind of already talked about what are the best ways to scale a business, right? Not including LinkedIn and networking and working your connections. What are some like tangible things people watching this episode can take home today and start working right away on growing their business?
Well, if you're running traffic, like I mentioned, stacking buyers in a vertical, you can scale a vertical or you can scale by running multiple verticals. Like there's two different approaches to it, I would say.
Cool. Love it. Gentlemen, do you have anything else for our guest today?
I would just like to let her know that I'm glad she had a great time at the ClickBid event where Armin van Buren headlined, which I didn't know.
And Solomon was at Pasha as well.
I actually have one more question.
Ringba and Google presented that event with ClickBid, and I didn't go. And so, yeah.
Cari,
this whole industry runs on FOMO, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. Instagram.
One of the best sets at EDC this year was Armin. I literally saw your Instagram and like had a melty in my kitchen. I was like, this is.
Cari, I got one last question for you that just popped into my head. I was thinking about it earlier today. What's the Hustle House, the Ringba Hustle House like? Is it as advertised? Because you're there in studio right now. For everyone that's listening and not watching, Cari is in the studio at the Ringba Hustle House in Miami. What's it like? Because I haven't been there yet. They don't invite co-hosts. You have to be a guest.
Only ChatGPT is visiting as a co-host.
This is my second time here, by the way. I've been here before.
Wow, Cari gets 2 invites before I get 1. That's sick. All right, so
no, Cari can come whenever she wants. She invited herself for this.
I understand.
I did, actually.
I understand.
I'm not. Else,
I get
Sean
it. I'm
said,
still.
I didn't get the invite, and I said I invited myself.
Yeah, he said that. He said that to me too. So, what is it? Is it as legit as advertised?
It is more legit, I would say. You can't really you can't show it in pictures the way it actually is. So,
well,
I actually have an idea where you guys have a commercial for the house where you have somebody house sitting for you, maybe an affiliate or a client or somebody, and then all of a sudden they're just throwing a rager.
Yeah, no.
There's goats everywhere and pizza and and beer cans and then all of a sudden like you show back up and it's just like pristine.
Well, I have a question for you and Josh. I mean, I pitched Harrison on throwing a party here and having one of the local, very famous Miami DJs come. And Harrison, what did you say about us having a great time for our clients? What did you say?
I think my answer was just fuck.
Obviously, no shoes are allowed.
Yeah, no shoes.
That's the main rule.
Yeah.
So.
No socks either, Josh.
I have socks.
It's okay.
We have a lot of foot lovers that watch the podcast.
Yeah.
And they complained and claimed that they were upset about socks. And I think it was like a denial thing. So I also don't have socks.
For those of you interested, you can find Harrison's OnlyFans tag in the description of this
Finder,
video.
it's better, but yeah.
Feet Finder, yeah.
The extended interview with their feet.
We've gone off the rails here. Cari, thank you so much for coming on the Affiliate Marketing Show. For myself, Josh from OfferVault, Daddy Callbucks, Adam Young, the industry legend Harrison Gevirtz, and Cari Hartman, the VP of Business Development at Policy Jar. Let's make that paper. Let's make that dough. This was the Affiliate Marketing Show. We will see you next time.